Welcome to TORAH Talk. I am your host, William Hall, broadcasting live out of Kingsland, Texas, USA, with another episode of TORAH Talk Weekly Parsha for the Ger and Noahide. Righteous Gentile with Rabbi. Hey, man, you know what? You may not be a rabbi, but to me, you kind of are, because I mean, you have you've got a lot going on. You know, and a lot of people don't know you, and I kind of got the cart.
No, and I actually like that.
Well, I kind of got the cart before the horse. I was going to actually lead it slightly differently, but I got tongue-tied there for a moment. So probably
that's all right. Well, the thing is I'm honored to be here because you only generally have rabbis here.
Right.
And as I said before the show, you have surely reached to the lowest part of the bucket to pull me up and to talk about the Torah of all things.
Man. Now, I really respect your teachings. I mean, because even though you're not a rabbi, you're orthodox in your view. Your teachings do seem to be very sound, and I love your approach to it. I mean, the website, if for all you viewers out there who don't know, you can go to nativ.net, and you'll find Rod Bryant's fascinating setup there in Houston, Texas. He's got a really great. You're geographically in a good spot because there's this. I hear this all the time that Texas is so full of people leaving Christianity. I mean, more so than other places, and I don't understand why that is. But being that is the case, there you are, right there in Houston.
Well, it's the second Holy Land. We know that.
That is. At least it was for the Astros this year.
Well, I do have to say this, that Houston just happens to be an amazing Jewish community, and it's growing by leaps and bounds. We have some of the best rabbis, and this B'nai Noach community here in Houston at Nativ has a fantastic relationship with the Jewish community. And one of the greatest compliments was paid to our community in recent conversion of a couple that had left Nativ about a year ago to convert. And at the wedding, Rabbi Yacobian stood up and he said, this is an ultimate picture of redemption. You have in the same building the B'nai Noach community, you have the Jewish community, and you have a lovely couple who have come out of that to join themselves with Israel and to convert and then to be married, their wedding. And it was just a little snapshot, because you don't see this anywhere else in the world that I know of.
Sure.
Where you have this kind of level of respect for each community and equal love for the Torah and Hashem.
I totally agreed. And like I said, I mean, what you're going there, I mean, like I said, there are a lot of viewers who probably have never heard of nativ.net or whatever, but one thing that what actually drew my attention to you to begin with was I was chasing, I was stalking Rabbi Tovia Singer, and he ended up at your place.
Yes.
Oh man, and I was just really humbly pleased and just amazed at
little did you know that when you came here, you would have him on every week for the last 2 years or 3 years.
Yeah, I would have.
So yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah,
you do some amazing shows on this. I'm going to tell you. You have a great service to the seeker community in the world, and I can't say anything but positive things about you. I always tell people about you, and I really look forward to further things that we can do together to serve Hashem.
Absolutely. And speaking of that, immediately following the show today, for those of you who are interested, Rod and I are going to have another on-air live show. It may be 15 minutes, maybe 30 minutes. We don't really know. We're just going to discuss some things that are very important. And so just so that you kind of know what to be excited about on this next deal, Rod, give us just a quick breakdown on what we're going to discuss it and why it's important for all the viewers.
Okay, well, we use the term Torah for the non-Jew. And I've had a number of rabbis and people within the Orthodox community ask me, what part of the Torah is for the non-Jew? And I tell them there's the whole Torah is for the non-Jew. It's just given to the Jewish people as a responsibility to preserve and to teach it and to present it. It's our responsibility as the righteous in the nation to recognize that there's only one Torah, there's only one God, and for us to have a relationship with that God is through that Torah. So I want to talk about the idea of Torah, how to study, why is it important for us to approach it the way we do, and I hope to challenge some people.
That's great. And it is very important. I mean, just like so many people ask me about. Sorry, I was trying to switch screens. So many people they'll either ask me or just talk to me about how they're studying the Talmud, and I'm like, I know these people, and I know, number one, they don't have a rabbi. I know that they've left Christianity, and they're trying to study all this Talmud stuff on their own. And man, that's very dangerous. You really cannot. You should not do that. That's not
Absolutely.
wise, right?
Absolutely. And look, I use an analogy, and I'll use it again, but just quickly. No one in their right mind would ever take a serious attempt to study quantum mechanics without looking at all the research that's available and actually learning the research, because you'll never understand quantum mechanics without looking at the research. And what happens in the non-Jewish world, they often look at these texts and just superimpose their ideas on it, like, well, this is what I see it to be. And it's just a dangerous combination.
Totally agreed. Okay, well, we'll move forward. This week's Parsha, Tetsaveh. Last week we had Teruma. Ironically enough, with your ex-partner in crime, Ira Michelson, such an awesome dude, and you guys were and still are a great power pack. So this week we'll be doing, and real quickly, I'm going to go ahead and open up the phone lines. The number will be on your screen in just a second, right there, 855-95-BIBLE. It's 855-952-4253. And as we discuss this thing, anytime we have particular like verse references, I'll put them up on your screen so you can read along with us. So with that said, let's kick this baby off. What are we looking for this week?
Well, we're looking at the text that starts in Shemot, the 27th chapter. We're going to be around verse 20. And last week, we dealt with the actual menorah itself and a few pieces of the furniture and how it was to be made. The Ark of the Covenant, which was an amazing study that we had last week. I finally, after many years of studying the Torah, decided to put pen to paper, because if anyone knows me, I'm not a mathematician, okay,
right.
And never have put myself to be that. But I decided to put down and to look at what the sources say about the weight and the size of the Ark of the Covenant, for example. And after calculating it, I felt completely redeemed. When I found the sources, I was only off by just about 300 pounds. And it's roughly 3.5 tons or so that the Ark of the Covenant weighs. I mean, can you imagine carrying 3.5 tons? It's impossible. So this is why in Sota 38b it says that the ark bears the bearer, right? The ark actually didn't even sit on the ground. It didn't have pedestals to sit on the ground. It seemed to sort of float or levitate in the space. And it seemed that whenever if you go through the rest of the text and says, and the ark moved, it didn't say, and the priest took up the ark and moved it. It says, and the ark moved, and all of the people moved with it, including the cloud. So this idea is an amazing thing. And if we don't take time to just sort of open the text and read it as it is and look at the sources, we'll miss some incredible lessons to be learned. I don't presume that we'll ever be able to get through all of this text today, but I want to hit some highlights, if it's all right with you.
Absolutely. Let's see what this caller has to say. Caller, welcome to the show. Please tell us your name, where you're calling from.
Hello?
Hello, you are live on the air with the Torah Parsha for this week. Do you have a question for Rod?
Yeah. My name's Ben. I'm calling from St. Louis.
Welcome.
You have a wonderful Jewish community around here. I've been around visiting. I've been on like a religious tour too, But anyways, I just wanted to say, since we have Moses on the rotunda, aren't we as America trying to plead as a biblical covenant nation? Aren't we trying to say that you're members of the tribe of Israel? Aren't we fully like joined and not in any way like lesserly under a lesser covenant? Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I do. Rod, what is your comment on that?
Yeah, this is a fantastic question. Let's first look at it from its real empirical, practical evidence, and that is, yes, I think the founding fathers and many people that moved to this country had this idea that we were like at some level like Israel. We had left left captivity of Europe and came to the United States to establish our own homeland. And yet, when we get here, and with all the evidence, it seems that we had a very strong sort of covenant mentality. The unfortunate thing is that Christianity, with the admixture of those things, sort of began to dilute the whole concept. I mean, at one point in our early history, it was contemplated that Hebrew would be our national language. Could you imagine living right now, 280 years later, and Hebrew being the national language of America? It was entertained at the time. So I believe that you're right. And I think that it's important for us to understand that we're returning back to that in the age of redemption. All of the nations will unify themselves with the house of Israel. And please don't take this saying that Jewish or Judaism has the responsibility of being the priest and we're some lower caste of this thing. That's absolutely terrible thinking. And I agree with you. We're not the righteous in the nations are not a lower class. It's just that we have our place. Just as the Jewish people had their place when the Kohanim had their place, everybody has their place in this world, and we are one great family of the family of God.
Awesome. I had to disconnect with that caller because we were getting multiple calls coming in at the same time. So great question. I think that was a good, solid question with a good, solid answer. And you know what's funny this week, Rod? I was thinking, people ask me all the time, how do you describe the Gentile? What's a proper view? And the first thing that jumped into my mind, because I use the phrase all the time at work. In fact, I talk to myself at work all the time. So and when I'm just about finished up, I'll say, okay, and last but not least, and then I'll do this thing, and I'm thinking, without doing that thing, this whole thing would have fallen apart. You know what I'm saying? And so I've kind of see the non-Jew as maybe last but not least. I mean, there's no. It is. Does that kind of make sense? Kind of fair to say?
No, absolutely, 100%. And look, I understand that the people of the nations, when they hear and read text from Jewish sources, it almost appears as if they're thinking that the non-Jewish people of the world are a second-class citizen. In reality, what they're talking about, especially if it seems to be in a negative light, is talking about people in Avodah Zarah, idol worship, pagans, people that are practicing all types of things that are against the Torah. That would be people that would not be considered in the same class. But surely the righteous of the nation who've accepted the Sheva Mitzvot and accepted the laws of God and the Torah, they are part of the family.
Right on. Okay, well, we'll go and take this next caller. Caller, welcome to the show. Please tell us your name, where you're calling from.
Hey, Will, it's Stephen Roth. How are you?
Hey, Stephen. How are you, buddy? Haven't heard from you in a while. How's things going?
Great. Do you hear me well? Because I'm on speaker. Is it? You hear me clearly?
Yeah, it's clear enough. Go ahead. If it starts to cause a problem, I'll let you know.
So first of all, I want to wish you and the rabbi fantastic luck. You guys are making a tremendous Kiddush Hashem. All you Noahides out there, I have so much respect for you guys. You have no idea. You warm my heart. So I've got a question. I'm an Orthodox Jew, but I want to get the perspective on this, from people that have been steeped in Christianity in the past, to just see that maybe just to be able to answer the question in a more robust way.
Okay.
So this is a perfect opportunity to ask. So Ezekiel 18 rails against vicarious atonement, proves it to be false. We don't throw virgins into volcanoes to forgive for other people. That's nonsense. We all know that.
Right.
However, in Judaism, and the rabbi can maybe shed some light on this, there's a concept of kares. If you do such a bad sin, you get cut off from God.
Hey, brother.
And then in kares,
Stephen, I'm going to interrupt you here for just a second, Stephen, if it's okay.
Sorry, say that again.
Let me interrupt you here for just a moment. I don't know. You may be calling on a different show. You said you were calling from your cell phone. So we're doing we're doing the weekly Parsha right now. So we're going to try to keep all the questions and stuff directly related to.
All right, so I'll ask a question on the weekly Parsha. Okay, so let me ask a question on the weekly Parsha.
Okay, great. Yeah, certainly.
Where exactly? What?
Go right ahead. That's perfect.
Okay, so the question is, like in Messianic times, where will the ark that fought wars for the Jews be? Where will that be brought back, or is it just going to be the original Ark of the Covenant that was put away by Josiah, I believe, that was hidden? Is that the only thing that will come back?
Yeah, that is a question that I haven't had answered myself. I asked this the other day. For sure, we know the original ark will be returned, and more than likely evidence show that it's in the Temple Mount. The idea of the other ark, though, may be out in the desert still, along with the rest of the Mishkan that's been buried, and it possibly will return. But I haven't really had a good solid answer on that myself.
Very good, Stephen.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, brother.
So
and Stephen, we hope to answer that question maybe in the follow-up.
Thank you so much.
Okay, hey, Stephen, Rod was giving you some final words. Go ahead, Rod.
Yeah, Stephen, I was going to say that we're going to be doing a follow-on part of the show next, and maybe that would be a good time to answer that question you were asking.
Oh, perfect.
Which was a very good question.
Right. So if he doesn't call in, let's try to remember that, and we'll actually put that in there. Okay.
Excellent.
Good deal. Okay. So let me get this out of the way. I've actually started doing a screen edit, and I need to blind it out real fast. Okay, good. So I see what I'm doing. Okay, cool. Okay, so again, the phone lines are open. We're getting more calls in here than I actually thought we would. So that's okay. We'll leave them open. Just remember, all you viewers, we're going to keep it topic related for this week's Parsha. Any other questions you have, we can definitely answer them. We'll just have to pick a different time and format for it.
Yeah, and look, we might need to dedicate a show to this because I'm not sure that you've really actually dedicated time to have people talk to someone that's in the
agreed
in the field that I'm working in. So I agree with that. I appreciate it.
Okay, perfect.
Right off the bat, the Parsha starts off by saying you should command the Israelites that they should take pure olive oil. And the word here that is used is translated in onkelos as beaten. Now, if you're following along in the Chumash, you might have another word. It says, for the light, to the light of the lamps continually. The olive oil, it kind of almost sounds like it's processed like any other olive oil, but in reality, it's not. The olive oil for the lamp had to be pure and couldn't be crushed. So sort of standard olive oil that you would use to cook, there would be a crushing and a filtering process. Well, in this, what would happen is the olives would be gathered on the tree with some type of netting, or if you can imagine, like a cheesecloth or linen cloth or something, and they would tie off these branches with the olives, and they would agitate them by beating them with a brush, and the little bit of oil that would drip out, sort of the first part of the oil that just drip off the skin naturally, that would be the oil used for the lamp. So you can see why it would take so long during when we talk about Hanukkah, it would take so long for the oil to be processed. This is not something that you can go out to your nearby grocery store and buy a bottle of oil. I mean, it was a process to take and gather up this and let this oil slowly drip out of this bag of olives that was there. Now, later they could use and crush it and use it for other things, but they couldn't use the olive oil for the menorah. And the purpose of that menorah or that oil was to have a light that was continually in the temple. Now, we understand that there's some deeper meaning for us, both Jew and non-Jew, that this menorah represents the mitzvah that is within our lives. It represents the very action and core of who we are, and it shouldn't pass our acknowledgement that the idea that if the oil represents the very source or Torah that brings the mitzvah, which is the light itself, if that's the case, then the first fruit of your study, remember, every bit of your Torah study, even the slightest little drop, is so absolutely valuable. And Torah is only really realized when it's brought into action and a mitzvah takes place. So that oil, without a spark, without a light, without the divine essence, is nothing more than just oil. But in this case, this first drops of oil would be put in the lamp and would illuminate the whole room. As a matter of fact, without the menorah, the priest couldn't see to do anything else in that room. It was pitch black. There were no windows. It was absolutely dark. And so, which we should understand also, there's a spiritual meaning behind it for all of us, that without mitzvah in our life, without righteous acts, without bringing the study of Torah and putting them into action, everything else that you do to serve God in physicality will be done in the dark. The Ramchal says this, that a man that is blind to willfully blind, that meaning he doesn't study Torah, he doesn't care, he doesn't give it a consideration, is like a blind man in the dark. Now think about that. How useless is a blind man in the dark? And it says, even if a sighted man attempts to help a blind man in the dark, the both will fall into the ditch. So the idea here is that we can't do anything to serve God until we first put into our beings the essence of the Torah and do mitzvahs in our life. It's a great thing to study. It says Aaron and his sons should set it up in the tent of meeting outside the curtain, which is before the testimony, to burn from evening to until evening before the Lord. And it is a statute forever for the Israelites throughout their generations. So this was a job for Aaron and his sons, the Levim. It was important for them to continue to have this light burning. Now it says that you should bring your brother Aaron near you with his sons from among the Israelites to serve before me. And he mentions them as Aaron, Nadav, Abihu, and Eleazar, and Ithamar, and the sons of Aaron. I would like to take just a moment to pontificate about our government. And where we find the origins of the separation of power. This is this beginning part of the text, starting with Yitro to here. We see that there's a separation of powers per se. You have Moshe, who is sort of king. You have Aaron, who is the priest. You have the separation between the priestly judicial side and the priest side. And then we see with Yithro's encouragement, Moshe is encouraged to develop judges, the 70 judges, who ultimately is known later on as the Sanhedrin. And we have almost this trifecta of government power, one being the priesthood, one being the leadership, the government, and the other in the judicial. And here we get just a little snapshot of this. Interesting enough, none of Moshe's boys ever did anything of significance. Kind of disappointing, I guess, for Moshe, which goes to tell you that God does not. God still looks at the fact that there are people that are qualified and those who are not qualified. Didn't mean that they were bad people. It's just they never had the actual chutzpah to study Torah like Joshua had. Is there anything that you want to say? You want me to stop on?
Nope. Go ahead and just keep on trucking.
Okay.
You're good.
There was the sacral vestments were to be made for Aaron, and it says the purpose behind it was for dignity and beauty. Dignity and beauty. What does it mean? He says there are different interpretations of this. Nachmanides states that the sacral vestments were to signify and beautify the high priest. Now, Sforno, on the other hand, maintains that they were for God's glory. Now we have Ebenezer. You have three Jews. You have three different opinions, or five. Anyway, Ebenezer on the verse suggests that the priestly garments were worn simply to separate and distinguish the priest from the Israelites who could not wear them. Now, one would say, okay, well, Rod, which one's the truth? We have three different opinions. I would say all and above, right? It was to separate the priest out. It was to help the nation realize that don't take things that are common and use it for things that are holy. We see this all through. The vessels used in the temple could not be used for common purpose. I mean, this was one of the big faux pas that was done in Babylon when the king decided to take all the temple vessels and have a big party with it. So the idea is the priests were to stand out. Now, I doubt very seriously Aaron or his sons ever came out strutting their stuff like a man in a new pinstripe suit saying, look at me, look how great I am. That was not the case. We understood, I think, and really do believe that they understood the importance of their garments and what it really meant. I am constantly amazed. I've only been around remembering presidents from I believe Nixon was the president that I cognitively knew and remember. And from President Nixon to President Trump, just about every one of the presidents, just about, not all, but just about every one of the presidents commented that when they got in office, people asked, well, what was it like your first day in office? And they would be overwhelmed with the sheer weight of the job. It wasn't the beauty of the building. Yes, the White House is a beautiful building. It wasn't the splendor of everybody calling them the president, but it was the weight of responsibility. And I really do believe when Aaron and his sons put on that vestment, the weight of responsibility to the children of Israel and to bring about korbanot, or closeness to God for the children of Israel, they didn't strut around in their own beauty and they didn't strut around in their own dignity, even though they conducted themselves with the utmost beauty and dignity. So we go on and it says, speak to all of those who are wise-hearted, whom I filled with the spirit of wisdom, that they should make Aaron's vestments to sanctify them to serve before me. Now, I would like to say this, and I'm sure that you've brought this up and many times before. I know I've heard you actually say this. Many people from Christianity say that the gift of the Spirit of God was not given to man until it fell on them in Jerusalem. This is one of many texts in which we see that isn't the case, that the Spirit of God came on many different people, the Spirit of wisdom, and the Spirit of wisdom was for the purpose of being able to do specific acts, was to be able to know how to weave the garments, to know how to make the vestments. And I would just add, even to this day, the Spirit of God comes on people and gives them special gifts to do things. There are some people that are just simply gifted, but if you think that your gifts is because you're so great, rethink and realize that there is a creator of the universe who still bestows gifts on people to do good things and to do beautiful things. If you've not seen, let me stand by 1 second. Let me turn around.
Okay.
Don't want to fall out of the chair. Can you guys see this?
Can.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. This book is made by Art Scroll. Are you familiar with it?
Yeah, we actually have that same book here.
Okay. Art Scroll, Mishkan, a must-have in your library. It absolutely one of the best resources, full of pictures, full of descriptions. When I read this text, without showing you the pictures, it's going to be kind of hard to understand. But I remember a number of years ago, maybe 7 years ago, I went to a hotel here in Houston, and there Rabbi Chaim Richman was there from the Temple Institute, and he brought with him the vestment, or the ephod with the jewels on the front, with the list of all of the tribes. Wow, what an amazing thing to pick up this. I had 3.5 kilometers of gold thread woven in this garment. It was heavy. I mean, you look at it and it looked like what do you call that women do when they set a crochet?
Oh
yeah, it looked like a crochet vest, right? And you pick it up and it's heavy. It's like a piece of body armor that I wore when I was in law enforcement. It was a very seriously woven thing. And you think, how in the world? I mean, sure, I could see we can do this in a modern age, but can you imagine in the desert pulling this thing together? There had to be some people with some extreme wisdom to be able to know how to do that. And it said Moses was told to sanctify them to serve before me. Now, just as a little side note, if you believe that the creator of the universe often gives people gifts, then you should also ask, what is your gift in this world? And our gifts in this world are to contribute to bring about God's closeness to those around you. Sure, there are people that have gifts of playing, sports, or they're talented, etc. Right. But the gifts we're talking about are gifts for the purpose of God connecting to other people. Now, William, your gift has been connecting people through media, through social networking, to bring people closer to the truth of Hashem. I mean, I'm blown away that you've only been doing this for 4 years now? 5?
3, maybe.
3?
Yeah,
Shoot,
third year, I
even
think.
less. 3 years,
Right.
and you're the master. I mean, you're doing this far beyond the dreams that I could have done. You just have that natural gifting, and I thank God that you followed up on that, and it wasn't just a simple inquiry when you and I talked one night, I don't know, over a Starbucks cup of coffee,
Right.
but you was like, hey, I'm interested in doing this, and I'm thinking, oh, well, okay, we'll see. And the reason why, you don't know how many people have interest, but they don't have the gift.
Right. Right.
And you have the gift. And so I want to
Thank you.
encourage people that are watching the show, you have a gift out there. Whatever that gift is, use it for the purpose of bringing closeness to God for everyone that is around you, including yourself. Your world will change. You'll be surprised how powerful that will transform your own life. And it says in verse 4 that these vestments are to be made a breastplate, a ephod, a robe, checker tunics, miters, the sashes. They should make the sacred garments for your brother Aaron and his sons, that they should serve before me. They should take the gold and blue, purple and purple dye and the fine linen. They should make the ephod of gold and blue and dye and the fine twined linen, the work of skillful workmen. It should have 2 shoulder pieces attached to its ends, and they should be joined together. The decorated bands that is on it should be made like it, one piece with it. The gold, the blue, the purple, the dye, the fine twine. If you haven't seen this thing in person, go to the Temple Institute in Jerusalem. It's amazing to be able to see this with your own eyes. Do we continue on?
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Okay, just tell me when to shut up.
No, you're good. You're good. I'm enjoying it. This is.
Okay,
it's
it
nice hearing all that.
says to take 2 onyx stones, engrave them in the names of the sons of Israel. Now, the stones back then were engraved, they say, and the art of it has been lost. Today we can do this for the first time because we have lasers, but it was engraved initially. It was engraved initially by some kind of insect, some kind of worm that was put on there, and it could engrave it without actually scratching or defacing the stone. Now, it says their names on the stone, and the names of the remaining 6 you should engrave on the second stone according to the birth. You should engrave the 2 stones like the engraving of the signet ring. Now, this brought up some controversy. Okay, I'm going to ask you, Will, to help me ponder through this.
Now, what verse is this referring to specifically?
Okay, this is verse 11.
Okay. Let me pull
So you want to pull it up, and I'm going to I don't even know what the word for it, a brain teaser or a problem, okay? Because this is what happens in our class, and this is typical of our Torah study class. Tonight we'll get together, we'll sit around the table. Everybody brings a source. Somebody has Talmudic sources, some has the Torah anthology. You know, everybody has something at the table. And we'll be reading along the text, and somebody will raise their hand and say, okay, this is what it says in the Talmud, this is what it says in the Gemara, you know, blah, blah, blah. Well, last year, someone pointed to me, what does it mean, like engraving of a signet ring?
And that's in verse 11, right? Yep. Oh, there
Verse
it goes.
11.
With work of an engraver in stone, like the engravings of a signet. Got it? Okay.
Okay. Now, what's an insignet ring?
Isn't that the one where they would actually seal an envelope closed with wax, right?
Right.
Okay.
So that would mean that the image would be backwards.
Right. Gotcha. Nice.
That's the question.
Right.
Okay. So I asked several people, several rabbis, Rabbi Chaim Richman, I'm not sure about Chaim, I think Rabbi Richman as well. And it was a little brain scratcher, because the whole point is, if like a signet ring, that meant that this engraving on the 2 stones were reversed. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I mean, otherwise there's no reason.
What would be the point?
Yeah, what's the
Right?
point of bringing out the signet ring? Period.
Right. So why
Right.
Why not just write on the stone,
Yeah.
engrave on the stone the words? So it isn't a significant brain teaser. So the idea was this, and this is what I posed, and we finally just gave it a rest, because sometimes you don't have answers, okay? One day we might have an answer. Rabbi Chaim Richman said, no, what it means is not that it was written in reverse, but it was written on it like you would see an engraving on a signet ring. Okay. He's the boss. I buy it, but I still am intrigued by the language that it says engraving of a signet ring. And then I thought, now follow me just a second. I'm just hypothetically posing something.
I love this.
We're going to play Indiana Jones for a second.
Bring it.
when the priest went in to the tabernacle, and there they were inside the Mishkan, and they walked around, it said that they would see the letters of the Hebrew reflected from what? The stones.
Okay.
And they would see it on the walls, and God would speak to them, correct?
Okay.
Am I right?
I don't know. That's why I'm learning.
Okay,
I'm enjoying this. This is good. Go ahead.
Okay, so the idea is they would use the Urim and the Thummim.
Oh yeah, right.
And they would look, and that the letters that were being reflected from the vest would give them a message.
Okay.
They could read this message coming off of the letters. The letters would highlight. So if it's a Lamed, if it was a Mim, if it was an Aleph, it would highlight.
Nice.
So the point would be, I'm just hypothetically saying this. I want to challenge people to go out and study this.
That's awesome.
So the idea would be, if I were to look at my name, let's say that I have a name tag that says Reuben David Bryant, and I stand in front of the mirror, how am I going to read that? It's going to be read what? Backwards. Mm-hmm. But if it's written like a signet ring, when I look in the mirror, I could be able to see what it is. Correct?
Nice, yep.
Just saying. It's a fun thought. Okay. I'm looking for somebody out there who has all of their faculties to go to and study it out and bring us a good answer, because right now I don't have an answer. I did pose it to two I would consider two people who are experts in the area, and they just didn't have any comment on that. They're like, don't know, but this is what I feel. So I found it interesting. Let's move on. It
is very interesting for sure, no doubt.
Okay. Like I said, I'm going to hold on one second.
Sure.
Like I said, if I have a source for something, I'll tell you. But if I don't, I don't, and I don't have a source for that. Okay.
Gotcha. Okay.
So
sounds good.
Except for this one text that says this. It says to insert them in settings of gold, thus you shall make. It says place 2 stones upon the shoulder pieces on each side, the ephod and the memorial stone. For the Israelites, Aaron should carry the names upon his 2 shoulders as a remembrance before the Lord. So, as I said before, Aaron went in with the weight of the tribes of Israel on his shoulders. The 2 chains of pure gold make them a plaited thread. The weathering work and put on the weathering chains upon the settings. Make the breastplate of judgment and work of a skillful workman. Make it like the work of the ephod. Make it of gold, blue, purple, and purple dye, and fine twined linen. It should be square and double, a span in length and a span in width. So about 6 by 6 or 7 by 7,
Gotcha.
somewhere around there.
Okay.
Verse 17 said it in mounted stones in the 4 rows of good stones, the first row, and he goes through and names the different stones, which we'll go on and move through.
I think somebody mentioned one time they thought that maybe the birthstones, you can buy these birthstone rings nowadays. They were thinking, maybe it was from the 12 different color stones on the breastplate. But I think the text actually would lead that to not be that. If anything, it would be the 2 onyx stones, right? Because that's where they had 6 and 6. So it was a nice idea, but
the fact is that you have to go back and look at what they call when they called beryl, onyx, jasper. What are those actual? What are the actual words? I mean, this is one of the problems that we have, and often reading text, we see it sort of translated into English, and we just assume, it's this. But you need to go back and find out what was that called back in that time. And here's a prime example. I don't know if you remember the gifts that Joseph was given. When his brothers came back and they said, we have to bring Benjamin with us. You remember this?
Yes.
And his father says, look, when you go back, don't go back empty-handed. Bring gifts. So they brought dates, dried figs, you name it, things from the Holy Land.
Gotcha.
One of them very cryptic name. And I'm like, stop. I don't know what this is. Let's figure it out. So we spent about 25 minutes going to the Google Rebbe and looking at different letters and words and looking at the Hebrew. Come to find out, it was a beer that was infused with a narcotic from the lotus flower. Now you think
that's
pretty. You mean to tell me they were exporting, narcotic-based beer, but it was used for pain, right? It was used. You didn't go to the drugstore. Right? You had to make your own painkiller. So they were actually sending him a jug of painkiller. So interesting. Otherwise, you would totally miss the whole thing.
Right. That's very interesting.
Or if you want an interesting study, go ask Rabbi Chaim about the use of cannabis in the Old Testament, in the Tanakh.
Interesting. Did it have something to do with whenever Rachel and Leah were disputing over who was actually going to be able to have Avram at the time, right? I'm sorry. Anyway, the story said that she had given sold her for some mandrakes or whatever. I don't know. There's different topics of different items mentioned.
Mandrakes was the Viagra of the time.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah. For example, I don't know if you know, but cannabis was part of the incense that were put on the altar.
I had my people mixed up there. Anyway. Oh, say that one more time. Repeat that.
Cannabis was used on the altar of incense.
Interesting.
That's what created, they believe, that's what created that single column that would go up. It would just create this solid column that would go straight up into the air. Interesting.
Yeah, right.
I'm not promoting the use of cannabis. I'm just saying that we just can't ignore the fact that it was used. Because you have to realize that cannabis during biblical times was a medication.
It's also a seed-bearing plant.
It's what?
It's a seed-bearing plant. I don't know if you would call it a herb, but it probably, I don't know. I wasn't there.
Well, look, I realize I'm probably very much a libertarian when it comes to something like that. But if it's in the Bible, it's been used for that. It doesn't hurt people. If you have to regulate it, fine. But to outlaw it to me is it would be like outlawing, what's the name of that bark that the American Indians use for aspirin? Birch? Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think it's birch. If you took birch off of a tree and boiled it and drank it, it acts just like aspirin. It'll kill a headache in no time.
Wow.
Let's talk about the
So far up to this point, where are we? Is there anything that we could take out of this for general application?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's really look at this because this is very important.
Okay.
I did a class a couple of years ago, and it might be posted up on the TV this week. It's called Dress for Success, and the idea that we get in Orthodox Judaism that men and women are to dress very nice, to dress their very best when you're out in public. And the reason why this is in Orthodox Judaism is because we're reflecting the divine nature of God in our own bodies. And obviously we need to watch how we act and how we talk, et cetera, et cetera. But there's something too. If you go to any Orthodox enclave, whether Jerusalem or in New York or wherever, you're going to see ladies dressed and men dressed as if they're going to some formal occasion. I mean, they're wearing black suits and nice black dresses and very modest. It's because they feel that they represent the King of the universe. And I encourage our local B'nai Noach community to have the same attitude. Now, look, I'm not asking them to dress with a suit and tie everywhere they go. And predominantly, I do that, but I've done that even before I was this. I dressed up because I remember my dad say, you dress for success, right? The old adage, you just dress up to be presentable. And people in our community have taken it as a serious sign and responsibility not to look like a slob when they're around town. Why? because they represent Torah. And I really do believe that when we come through all this, you look at this, if all of these things that Aaron and his sons did were for the purpose of distinction and what do you call those two? I think the two words was beauty and distinction. Then we really, William, have a responsibility to be people of beauty and distinction.
Sure.
We're not like the rest of the world. And the advantage that the B'nai Noach / Ger, the people that are coming to either conversion or getting closer to Hashem, they've separated themselves from Avodah Zarah, et cetera, is we have an advantage that we can very much be in our own culture, and it doesn't really matter. We don't have prohibitions against sitting at the table with other people and having a dinner and laughing and enjoying ourselves. But we should be cognizant of the fact that we're not like the rest of the world. We're not like the idol worshiper down the road. We're not like the person who has considers themselves out from under the yoke of Torah. There are people who conduct their lives with great pride, saying that they're no longer bound to any responsibility to Torah. It's a lie from the pit of Hades, and we all know that. And so at some level, we need to make ourselves distinct and beautiful at the same time. And I think that's the cue. We can be people of distinction and not be very beautiful. And I know some people who wear strimals and knickers, and they're not pretty people, if you understand what I'm saying.
Right.
And I'm not talking about their looks. I'm talking about their attitude and their outlook in life. And God forbid that a person who lives at that highest level is not also a very beautiful person. And that's what I take from it, William.
Nice. It's something for sure that we have to think about, not every once in a while, but literally minute by minute, because our attitudes tend to flare up on an instant. So if we just constantly think about that, and every time we, breathe and open our mouth, I'm teaching my kids the same thing. You as my child, you don't have the option to just vent. If you want to vent, you need to schedule it. You need to plan it. What's the saying? Don't react, respond.
Right.
And so,
well, look, I think one of the Achilles heel, of our society today is that we're in a society in which everybody's offended, but at the same time, nobody has the self-discipline to control what's in their mind. Mm-hmm. It's whatever they think they say, and it's damaging. It hurts people. It's not beautiful at all. And I would rather always err on the side of being misunderstood than to say something that would destroy another person. Yeah, and you're right. That's a great way to raise your children. I remember my youngest child, my daughter, who has two beautiful twins, Levi and Rachel. When she was a young woman, I remember the first time that she came down, it was right before she became a teenager. So if you know what I'm talking about, it's right when they're starting to spread their wings and develop their own little persona. She come downstairs and she was taking one step at a time, and each step was a labor, and it's like, looking all depressed.
Right.
And I said, whoa, stop. and she looks at me like, what? I said, go back upstairs. Nobody's interested in seeing you looking with the mully grubs. Go back to bed. Right. And so she goes upstairs, goes to the room. She comes out again, and this time a little bit cheerier, but not quite. We tried it 3 times. Finally, the third time she laughs, right? But the whole point is like, you know what? We need to establish this rule. Nobody's going to be all with the mully grubs and unhappy here. You just need to go upstairs until you decide to make yourself right. But this is what we're talking about.
That's funny. You made me think of something I used to do to the kids when they were really young. But both David and Sarah are both very ticklish, like right here by their clavicle area right here, and their collarbone, whatever. And so anytime I was trying to get them to laugh, they weren't ticklish on their feet or their armpits, but right here, right at their neck, they would just go nuts. And I would use 2 fingers, and I would just kind of like poke at them and wiggle, and they would just go crazy. And so as they started getting older, and they would start looking with this downtrodden attitude and stuff like this, all I'd have to do is just hold up these 2 fingers, and they would immediately smile. I mean, no matter how bad of a mood they were in, those 2 fingers, they would just instantly smile. So
that's good. That really is good. Well, the thing is, this portion is much longer and much more detailed than we have the time to go into. But I would like to add one other element. I'd like to go to the 30th chapter, if that's all right.
Okay, certainly. I'll pull it up. Absolutely. Give me 1 second. Oh, I had to put on a different pair of glasses because they have more of an anti-glare. There's
just go ahead and face it.
There's a scratch going across, and I can't see past it very well. I have to switch glasses again. Sorry, guys. I'll have to get a new pair of glasses here soon.
Well, the one that gets me is my wife and I tend to buy the cheapest glasses at the same place. Mine is double that what hers is, and I'll often pick hers up and wonder what in the world's happened to my eyes. Okay, so it says in chapter 1, it says, make an altar to burn on it aromatic incense and make it of acacia wood. It's made very much like the ark. Okay. Now, in the conclusion of this portion, verse 7 through 8, Aaron is to burn this incense and is to burn on it in it every morning when he tends the lamps. And Aaron shall burn it at twilight when he lights the lamps, is what it says, a regular incense offering before the Lord throughout the ages. The importance of the incense is reflected in the fact that the high priest would burn it once a year on the Day of Atonement in the Holy of Holies as well. Incense is mentioned in the Bible in other contexts as well in the service of the tabernacle. And we remember Aaron's son, Nadav and Abihu, who came and brought strange fire and incense and was struck dead on the floor there. And we have many explanations as to why it happened. But let's bring it down to, and also we have the instance of Korah. Remember Korah and his rebellion? The same thing, which once again points us to this whole idea of separating that which is holy from that which is profane. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it was forbidden for them to make incense the same way to use in their homes. So, for example, they couldn't take the incense that was on the altar and burn in their home. They couldn't even mix it in the same way and do it at the house. It was to be separated. And not only that, but it was to be done every day by the priest while the menorah was being maintained. And incense often is associated to prayer. Incense is often associated to hitzbadadut, personal prayer, in which you approach the creator of the universe and you in turn approach God and begin to speak to him. You offer up to him a conversation and a connection. And I think one of the greatest repairs to our mitzvahs, and if the menorah is the mitzvah machine, if you can get it, and the olive oil, the fresh olive oil is the knowledge of the Torah, and the fire is the mitzvah that we conduct, and the light that we illuminate the world with, then surely one of the things that we're going to learn is that bringing up an offering of incense, of hitzbadadut, personal prayer, is the thing that keeps our lamps trimmed. How do we improve our ability to bring illumination and light and mitzvahs, but that we do it through intense prayer and connection to God? We find ourselves with Rabbi Nachman's writing that talks about that an individual who takes and spends time with prayer and spending few words that are focused with intent is more powerful than volumes of words read. And so if we really want to refine ourselves and to bring about great illumination with your great acts and that come from Torah study, spend time in personal prayer. Spend time in meditation. It's a lost art in the world of Judaism. And though prayer 3 times a day is a fine art in Judaism, many of the people from the nations that come have not been able to experience that type of tradition. And so I want to encourage those who are in the nations to grab a hold of the garment of Hashem and begin to shake it. with fervor and talking to Hashem and asking him to bring personal improvement in life, and you'll be surprised how your life will change. I really appreciate you bringing me on the show, man.
Hey, that's cool. I'm glad you took the time to come out here and teach us, man. It's really good stuff. You know, I was thinking of the last things you were saying, just like the comparison between the incense and the fire and things like that. You know, strange fire, that being the most dangerous of all, is something that I have in my mind and heart have over the past 5 years have really been believing that's kind of the Christianity thing, because they're trying to worship God through something that Torah forbids. Right. And it's kind of, you know, Nadav and Abihu, they experienced that. They did something that they weren't supposed to. And of course, like you said, there's many variations on what that actually was. The least of those, I think, was what most people assume. But even still, it's the strange fire. It's trying to worship God through a golden calf. It's trying to worship God through means that He never gave us permission to do so.
Right.
And so for us as Bnei Noach, we have to lean towards Torah and trust it, and you know, and yeah, pretty much. So
well, it is like I said, an absolute honor to be able to come and to bring and teach. I realize that there are many hundreds of great Chacham out there, and I'm humbled to be able to have this opportunity to teach. All I can do is present it from an angle that I know that other people will understand, and that's the reason why we teach Torah this way at Nativ.
I mean, man, thank you so much, and thank you all for watching out there. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also, go to nativ.net. Check it out. You've got what is your YouTube channel? What is it? Is it Nativ?
Yeah, Nativ Online is the YouTube channel.
N-E-T-I-V.
Online, one word.
No space. Got it. Nativ Online.
Nativ Online. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. But when you subscribe, be sure to turn on the notifications bell, because subscribing won't let you get notified when we do things. It's only if you turn on the notifications. So be sure to
also
do that.
Subscribe to Nativ when you get a chance.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, brother. It's been a great pleasure. And y'all sit tight if you're interested in hearing what we were discussing earlier in the show about a proper way of approach, how to approach Torah, things of that nature. You want to stay close to your computer. I'm sure if you just leave your YouTube channel up, it'll probably start playing automatically, I guess. So we'll see. And for all those who aren't watching it live, I'll make it pretty clear how to find that actual video. So, as usual, always a pleasure, and I'll see you guys in a few minutes. Rod, love you, man.
Thank you.
You betcha. Shalom.
חשוב והכרחי להיות ביחד. איפוק זו העוצמה, ויתור זו הגדולה, השאיפה והכמיהה. אני אתה אתם תמיד כולם ביחד. חשוב מכל חשוב והכרחי להיות ביחד. איפוק זו העוצמה, ויתור זו הגדולה.